What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about Nvidia stock because this stock has been rallying hard. As we know, it's been going from $150 all the way up to $475 as of last week. But I'm going to be talking today about why I think this stock could be heavily overvalued, but also why the stock could potentially have some undervalued properties, which is the reason why it's being propelled to the prices at today. So let's not waste any more time and get into everything. Now, before I get into the video, I've recently opened a Patreon account where you'll be able to get all my up-to-date information on Nvidia. So that will require my bull case, base case, and bear case. But anyway, let's get into the video. Now, my first article is about the recent changes in market cap to Nvidia and also other companies like Microsoft, where the stock price has been going insane. And big names like Elon Musk have had their say on this, stating that it's crazy times. And when we consider just last week that over $175 billion flowed into both these companies, we're talking about market caps of large companies that is directly going into these companies such as Nvidia and Microsoft so quickly that it's to the point where have the fundamentals really changed to that much that's going to enable that much liquidity to flow into these businesses? Definitely not. But as we know, the market's unpredictable. We're talking about large companies like Intel, Disney, Wells Fargo, all these big names. Market caps combined are flowing into the company's valuation when we're talking about Nvidia's valuation. It's insane, and to the point where the market just seems to be buying this name just constantly without any thought of valuation. So let's talk about a little bit about the valuation currently. So as we can see here, Nvidia stock is currently trading at $443.09. And over the last week, it's gone all the way up to around $475, which is just absolutely insane. And when we consider the market cap here is 1.909 trillion, and there's a PE ratio of 230. Let me say that again, 230. This company clearly has to warrant some huge growth expectations over the next few months, years, and almost decades to the point of a 230 PE. So let's take a little bit further into the estimates for 2023, 4, and 5, because these numbers could be massive. So moving on to the estimates now, we can see the revenue changes from 2023 onwards is expected to almost double from 26 billion to 43 billion in 2024, and then estimated further on from that, another compounded rate of 27% is expected to bring this company to $55 billion in revenue in 2025. So we can see the growth is massive, which could justify potentially the PE, depending on how they can drive those margins. That's going to enable them to deliver greater EBITDA, net income, and free cash flow. So looking down further, we can take a look at the EBITDA expected. They're expected to do $5.7 billion in EBITDA in 23, and that does give an estimate of around $200 to $230 PE, which considering is extremely high. But we can see the earnings potential goes from 5.7 billion all the way to almost $19 billion. And that cuts the PE on today's value from 230 PE all the way down to closer to around a $60 PE, a 60 PE. So we can see that it cuts up very quickly. And then we look further into 2025 numbers, and we can see that the estimate is around 23 billion in EBITDA, which again brings this company closer to just probably under the $50 PE mark, which is still extremely elevated for a company. But then we look further out, and this is where it becomes much more speculative. We don't quite know if the company can deliver further EBITDA growth and revenue growth, considering how much they've grown already. As the business gets larger, it does get harder to grow. And this could definitely weigh in on Nvidia's potential in the future. But we can see the net income is also expected to grow heavily to 26 billion in 2025, and then EPS of 8.52, which again is a massive jump from 1.74 they're expecting in the current year. So the numbers could be massive. Now we got to decide whether or not this is actually possible. And we can look at a few articles and what the Nvidia team is actually guiding. And these will give us a better base of where they can drive this revenue and EBITDA and net income from. So let's get into a few other articles to work this out. So, where can Nvidia drive this revenue growth from? Well, as we know, it's been on everyone's lips, has been the AI boom. And forecasts and sales have jumped massively because of this part of the actual business. And we're going to be talking about a little bit about data center revenue as well, because this is where the company is driving a lot of that growth to the point where Nvidia's team have guided up massively. So we can see here that on Wednesday of May 24, that the second quarter revenue was 50% above Wall Street's estimates. So if we consider this is the case for 2024's numbers and 2025 numbers, suddenly the valuation can be brought down very quickly because of this, depending if they beat. And they are boasting basically about the supply and the demand of artificial intelligence with the different chips that they're providing. And then when they are also talking about Chat GPT and many other similar services, these are where these chips have been derived from and where NVIDIA thrives, because they need to produce all these chips that are driving all the different AI craze, essentially. And again, this has caused the stock to rocket as much as 28% after the bell from $391, which was a record high at the time. But as we know, the stock is trading closer to a $450 mark as of last week. So we can see that the company is obviously gaining market cap to the point where they are now in the big, almost 7 companies in the US. They're currently 5th. And when we consider Apple is a $3 billion business, or it was at one point, and now Microsoft has also been basically following, we can see that Nvidia is on the rise very quickly as of the last week. So the reason for this further demand and why Elon Musk, who is reportedly building out an artificial intelligence startup, which doesn't shock me, the demand is so high that it's basically like getting harder to get than drugs, is what Elon Musk is saying. So you can see the different demand for the AI chips and why Nvidia is running as of recently. Whether or not this can continue, I have my doubts, because like anything, like the EV craze, all these things do come to an end. But we have to consider that Nvidia is a real company producing real revenues and real cash flows, to the point where this clearly isn't a fad company. But whether or not the valuation can justify it is very dependent on how well the company can actually execute. So further down, we can see that a lot of additional orders have been placed, and that has led to more supply for the second half of 2023, which should drive that revenue. And Nvidia's forecast of the current quarter has been guided to $11 billion. And considering, I believe Q year on year was around 4 billion in the same quarter last year. So we can see that the analyst estimates have all had to be revised up, which means price targets have to be priced up as well. And then this just puts greater promotion on the stock, wanting people to buy it and drive the stock price higher. And then, given the generative AI gold rush taking place, again, the fuel for demand for the chips for the remainder of the year, analysts have been saying that this is going to continue into 2024 and also 2025. And then when we consider the adjusted revenue of 7.9 billion for the quarter ending April 30, analysts were expecting a revenue of 6.5 billion. So they smoked it out of the water. It wasn't even close. But will that happen in the next quarter, which they're reporting in the next couple of weeks? We'll see. Because if they can continue to drive this, the stock price will continue to run. There's no question about it. And when we have other competitors like AMD, Intel, even though that AMD and Intel are fantastic businesses, Um, Nvidia is killing them right now. No question about it. The AI craze, the gaming sector, the data center growth is what is driving this business's growth further than anything other. And that's one thing I'm going to get further into because the data center growth is something that isn't being talked about enough, in my personal opinion. So let me go on to my next article now. Let's talk about where Nvidia is deriving its revenue from now. Because as of recent, gaming had been amazing in terms of driving that huge revenue growth in the previous years. But now it's the point where data centers are taking over. So this is where we can see on the nice chart here, we have the data centers, which is now expanding greater than actual the gaming sector. We can see a slowdown in the gaming sector in 2023 to 2024, while we can see an acceleration of that data center revenue, which is driving the growth into 2024 in Q1 from the estimates we have here. So the reason for this is because of the chips that are needed in these massive data centers to function these big supercomputers for AI. And they are working with huge quantum computing companies, where we can see here the British quantum company Orca Computing. And this is driving that huge tied up revenue, which is just fantastic for that long term growth of NVIDIA. So the outlook is obviously very sunny, as we can see here. And as mentioned, the forecast of $11 billion is well ahead of expectations of any analysts, which were expecting that they thought they would be close to the $7 billion mark. So, yeah, as you can see here, unsurprisingly, this sent the stock price insane. And this is one of the reasons it's gone from $150 to now $475. Now, whether it can keep going is dependent on whether Nvidia can keep driving these revenues to deliver on the numbers that they are forecasting. Because if they keep hitting, the stock will be massive. Don't get me wrong, this stock could be $1,000 stock if they keep executing to the point where their growth just keeps driving. But as mentioned, as the business gets larger, it gets much harder to actually deliver because there's just less. There's less things that can move the needle for Nvidia, and that's going to impact valuation. And valuations matter in the long term. In summary of Nvidia, this is the big one because valuation has gone from $330 billion all the way to 1.1 trillion, pushing this company to a 230p as of today. Now, as we know in the analyst numbers for 24 and 25, that brings it closer to a 50 or 60p. But can you still justify that growth? And it's priced to perfection, this stock currently. If Nvidia miss any numbers, there's only one way this stock is going. And this is where we need to be very careful. While there's definitely huge revenue drivers in the data center market and even in the gaming market, I think there's further growth for Nvidia to drive and move the needle for Nvidia to drive that valuation to a more reasonable value. You've got to consider this company has to not only just meet expectations, but beat expectations. And then you consider further out. You look further out at 25, 6, 7 numbers. They have to keep driving those numbers to actually warrant the current valuation it's at today. So you've got to ask yourself, do I really want to be buying this company at $475 when only 6 months ago to a year ago, it was closer to $150 mark? You really want to be buying that? Are you seriously thinking you're going to make more money than you are at the current valuation? I don't think so. I think this company is still extremely overvalued. And while it's a great company, it reminds me of kind of the tech bubble in 2000, early 2000s, where while the internet is obviously a huge driver, and while I believe AI is the future, you still have to pay a reasonable value to actually get a great investment. So, and make sure to check out my Patreon account where I have a bull case, base case, and bear case for Nvidia. So I'll leave that link in the description. But if you guys enjoyed this video, just make sure to give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.